Hello, everyone. We'll be getting started in just a second. We're going to give everybody about 2 minutes to get into the room and everything, and then we'll jump right in. So I'm just going to mute, but while we're here, we're going to be going over a number of different things, but don't feel shy if you want to drop something into the Q&A so that we can go ahead and make sure that those questions get answered. We'll get started in just a second. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all so much for being here today. Today we're going to be going global with Georgia Tech, a very techie tradition. My name is Ashley Toomey Flynn, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. And today we are going to be joined by my colleague Alana Blumenfeld-Gantz, who is our International Plan or IP Manager, and she'll be talking about the International Plan. When we get to the presentation in just a second, we'll be going over study abroad, the global research and internship program, the international plan, how to get involved on campus with on-campus internationalization, and how to stay up to date with our office, the Office of International Education. But before we get started, we wanted to show you where normally you would find Yellow Jackets abroad. In a normal year, we have kind of students all over the world doing global research and internship placements and also study abroad. So these dots represent 3 of our most popular programs. 2 of them are study abroad, and 1 of them is our global research and internship program. And we actually even have researchers who go to Antarctica on a regular basis, so technically we reach all 7 continents. But to know how to get involved with this, you need to know what your eligibility requirements are. To be eligible to study and intern abroad, students must be at least 18 years old. We have some awesome students that come to us whenever they're younger than 18, and the rule is that you need to be 18 by the time that you step on your flight. So you can apply younger than 18 years old, but you have to be 18 by the time that you go abroad. Students must be full-time degree-seeking students at Tech, and they must have completed 2 semesters of college-level degree-seeking study. So typically this means that when students come in the fall and that's their first full-time semester, the first time they're eligible to go abroad will be the summer of their first year. Students need to be in good academic and disciplinary standing, want you to be successful at Georgia Tech before we send you out into the greater world. And we do need to note that some programs have GPA requirements. To find these requirements, you would look at our application portal, which is called Atlas, and I'll give you a preview of this in just a little bit. But when you study abroad with Georgia Tech, you're going to earn in-residence academic credit. And this in-residence portion is really, really important for a number of reasons. The biggest reason is that when students get older in their time at Georgia Tech, they're going to start hearing about something called the 36-hour rule. And the 36-hour rule simply says that students must take their last 36 hours as in-residence credit. But whenever you study abroad on either exchange or faculty-led study abroad, you're earning in-residence credit. So once you're eligible to study abroad, you're eligible to study abroad all the way through the last semester that you're here at Georgia Tech. We don't necessarily recommend waiting until the last semester that you're here to go abroad, but if that's what works best with your academic career and schedule and stuff, then we totally support you in that. Students can study abroad during the fall, spring, summer, or for the full academic year. We need to note that most programs are going to charge all students the in-state tuition rate. Our most notable exception to this is our Georgia Tech Lorraine campus, which charges out-of-state students studying abroad on that program the in-state tuition rate plus an out-of-state fee. Currently, that fee is about $6,050, and it's just because we maintain a full campus in Metz, France, and so that accounts for some of that extra cost there. When students study abroad, they can go abroad with a group, or they can study abroad at one of our partner universities on exchange. And let's go into a little bit more depth with that. So when students study abroad on exchange, this is an awesome opportunity because it allows students to pay their Georgia Tech tuition and fees to Georgia Tech and then go to a different institution where they're technically an international student and study abroad there. And in their place, that student will say maybe they're going to Spain. That student in Spain pays their tuition and fees to their Spanish institution, and then they come to Georgia Tech in our tech student's place. So literally it's an exchange of positions. But what's great about these exchanges is that it allows students to satisfy their degree requirements. So that's major electives and requirements. Most of these exchanges are going to charge the in-state tuition rate, so it helps to keep the cost down. And we have about 70 partner institutions all across the world. Typically, students will do this during the fall, spring, or academic year. It's not a summer program, but it does allow students to take some of those upper-level credits and electives. The deadlines for these exchanges fall kind of early in an academic semester. So for instance, if a student was wanting to study abroad for the fall or the academic year, they would need to make sure and apply by like February the 1st of the spring semester. So if you have questions about that, we're happy to answer those. And I'll also show you some examples of where to find these on our website in just a little bit. Students can also go abroad with a faculty-led study abroad program. So these are programs where students study and live abroad for a period of time with other Georgia Tech students and faculty members. It's a great way to get to know other students, but also faculty to make some professional connections. These study abroad programs typically happen during the summer, but we have a few that happen during the fall or spring as well. And they offer coursework in a variety of majors. So we have some that are really specific. So it's like aerospace engineering in Limerick, Ireland, or biomedical engineering in China, or something like that in Beijing. Or there's more general programs. And these are programs like the Oxford Study Abroad program or the Barcelona Summer Program, where majors from all across campus can study abroad on those programs. Most programs are going to charge the in-state tuition rate, like I said, and once again, the most notable exception to this is our Georgia Tech Lorraine campus, which charges out-of-state students the in-state tuition rate plus an out-of-state fee. I would like to make sure and comment that this out-of-state fee is still much less than the Georgia Tech out-of-state tuition. The program deadlines for these are going to vary, and right now they're actually pretty standard because of COVID-19. We are planning to study abroad in summer 2021, and most of our deadlines are February the 15th, so that gives us plenty of time to kind of react and adjust as necessary as we continue to deal with COVID-19. We are also making backup plans in the event that something happens and we're not able to study abroad in the summer. So we're trying to make sure and come up with plenty of contingency options. Then we have financial considerations. These are really close to my heart because I was a student who wouldn't have been able to study abroad without financial aid and everything. So it's, again, really important to note that the out-of-state students or international students, they're going to pay the in-state tuition rate on most of our programs. The biggest exception, again, being Georgia Tech Lorraine. When students study abroad, their financial aid is going to go with them. So that's going to include scholarships, grants, and loans. So Hope and Zell Miller will go with you when you study abroad. Stamps Presidential Scholarships have a scholarship specifically to go to abroad. Tech Promise can study abroad if they study abroad during a fall or spring semester. And then you can also take things like student loans and also things like the Pell Grant with you when you study abroad. There are also outside study abroad scholarships available. So we have some campus scholarships available and we have some outside scholarships available. And so for our campus scholarships, in our office, the Office of International Education, we administer about 9 different scholarships from a kind of a pot of money and everything. We have multiple deadlines per academic year. So we just had our fall deadline. And so our next deadline for students who want to study abroad in the fall or the summer of 2021, that deadline is going to be February the 15th. Our average award amount is about $2,500, and these scholarships are really competitive. So we have about a 7 to 10% selection rate every year. Or every application cycle, sorry. There are also campus scholarships that are broken down into 3 main categories. So there are some location-specific scholarships. So like if you've ever wanted to study abroad in Germany, or you wanted to start learning German, now is a great time because we have a lot of scholarship opportunities for students who want to study abroad in Germany. There are also a couple of major-specific scholarships. These are like the School for Civil and Environmental Engineers has scholarships for civil and environmental engineers. There's also scholarships for business administration majors to study abroad, and also architecture and design students to study abroad. There are also a few program-specific scholarships, like we have some scholarships for students going to GTL, going on the Leadership for Social Good program, and a few other ones. And then we also have some national scholarships. And these national scholarships are great because they allow students to compete nationwide. And nationwide, many scholarship programs seek to help underrepresented students study abroad. And underrepresented students can come from a variety of different areas, the most notable being STEM students, so science, technology, engineering, and math students are given some preference in many scholarship categories because it's harder for them to study abroad because of the sequential nature of their degree programs. Also, racial and ethnic minority students have some preference in scholarship competitions. And so if you're interested in that, you want to learn more about it, you're welcome to work with me and everything so that we can find the scholarships that work best for you and help you get started with them. The next thing I want to show you is actually our website. So what I'm going to do is take you to our website, which is the Office of International Education. And this is our study abroad site here. And so whenever you look at this page, you can find more information. So right now we're in the process of updating our spring and summer 2021 frequently asked questions. And these have to do directly with COVID-19. We want to make sure that students are as up to date as possible. You can also sign up for our newsletter, make an appointment with an advisor, or you can go look at our study abroad programs. This is going to take us to our application portal called Atlas. And so here we have all of the programs kind of listed out. There's a ton of programs on here. So the way that you can narrow down this list is to go to the advanced search function here. And you can search or filter this list by a number of different things. You can filter it based on where you want to go, when you want to study abroad, and a number of other things. But I'm going to look at academic discipline, and I'm going to choose aerospace engineering because it's at the top of the list. But what's great about this is that it narrows down, whenever you do this, it narrows down the list to places where aerospace engineering students or any major would be able to find study abroad programs that allow them to satisfy major and elective requirements. And so all of our 36 undergraduate majors can study abroad and earn credit within their major whenever they go abroad. And I'm going to choose a couple of general programs to kind of give y'all an idea of what you can do on these programs. So I'm opening two programs here. The first one is the Berlin Summer Program. This is a program run out of the College of Computing. And what's great is that each of our programs has a page like this. Many of the programs even have their own homepage, which you can go to. But this program page is going to show you when a program deadline is, who you can contact. So if you're looking through this program page and you can't find the information that you're looking for, you can always reach directly out to a person and say, I have questions about X, Y, or Z. You can also find more information about the program. So all of our 36 undergraduate majors can study abroad. And I just need to point out that it's undergraduate. We don't have as many options for graduate students as far as like study abroad programs, although there are some. When students study abroad on this program, they're going to earn a full 12 credit hours, which is really important. That's a full semester's worth of credit. Even though you're in Berlin, this course program is going to be taught in English, and you're also going to earn, you're also going to be abroad for 11 weeks, so about 2.5 months over the summer. Right now, we're in the process of updating the courses that are offered, but this can give you a good idea of what would have been offered or what will be offered for summer 2021. And then we have the financial information. So when you're looking at this budget, it's good to know that we have to account for everything a student would need to be successful in Atlanta for whenever they go abroad. So we have, tuition and fees. We also have the program charge. And the program charge for a faculty-led study abroad program is going to include these things here. So that's your housing costs, the cost of local transportation, any like field trips are going to be included and stuff like that. Then you also have the cost of airfare is rolled into this. We want to make sure that students can get to where they need to go in order to be successful. And this is the total amount that students would end up paying for this program, all total, even if like this $12,004 goes directly to Georgia Tech, but you wouldn't pay us for like your flight. Like that would go to Delta or American or whatever. But this is the total cost of attendance, and you can get scholarships, grants, and loans to offset this cost. I've been looking at the current cost of attendance for Georgia Tech students living in Atlanta and who are Georgia residents, and right now the cost of attendance is right about $15,949. So this program is pretty comparable to what it would be to be on campus, and you're getting to satisfy your requirements, getting full semesters worth of credit while you're there, and you get to take Hope and Zelma and stuff like that. And if you're like, well, this sounds great, but I also need to know about the cancellation policy, you can find that by scrolling down and going here. And then if you have specific questions about this, then you want to contact the person that was listed on the home page when I first got here, so on the overview page. So this is a summer study abroad program. Let's look at an exchange program really quickly. So this is an exchange program in Spain. It is open to many different majors. And one of the important things to know about our exchange program is sometimes they operate on slightly different academic calendars than what we're used to in Atlanta because they're in different places in the world. But this program allows students to study abroad like they would here. So they can study abroad during the spring, the fall, or the full academic year. It has your dates and deadlines here as well. And then you can also look at the information sheet for some more specific information. So with this one, you're earning at least 12 credit hours. Even though this exchange is in Spain, you're actually taking most of your classes in English, and you're going to be abroad for 17 weeks, which is a week longer than the Georgia Tech semester in Atlanta. So you get a little bit longer in country. The costs are broken down in much the same way, but a little bit more granular detail. So we have tuition, we have fees, we have insurance, and then there's a program charge associated with that. But then we also account for things like books and supplies, airfare, and then also the room and board costs. And just like with the last program, this total amount down here is what students can expect to pay for this program, completely out the door and everything. And then scholarships, grants, and loans will also go to offset the cost of this program. Also in Atlas, what's great about it is that whenever you're looking at these pages, you can go and apply for scholarships directly from this same application portal. And the scholarship competition is closed at the moment just because we're reviewing the scholarships and everything, but it will reopen in December for students to apply for the February 15th cycle. And with that, I am going to go back to the PowerPoint and make sure that I am answering questions as well.
Yes, Ashley, I was going to say we have a number of questions that I think would be great to address because they're on past topics before we move forward to the intro.
Yeah. So one of the questions that I see here are, how do international programs interact with the foreign language and cultural minors? They work really kind of hand in hand with a lot of those and everything. So we have our LBATs, or language, business, and technology programs. And what's great about some of those programs is that if you are a mechanical engineering major and you're minor Spanish, you could potentially go on one of the Spanish LBATs over the summer, and that would take out like 90% of your minor. Like you have to take like 1 to 2 classes outside of that. So they work really well together. And then there are also places where you can go and study language while studying abroad on an exchange program or something like that. And if I didn't answer that fully, please let me know, and we'll go back over that. And then, sorry, I'm trying to get to see more of the questions here. And then Alana, if you want to add anything to that as well, please jump in there as well. Okay. Um, are both domestic and international study abroad opportunities offered? We do offer, of course, international opportunities to study abroad, but there are some domestic opportunities that are going to be offered this summer. They're going to be called Global at Home programs. And they're for faculty who want to offer an international type experience, but are not going to necessarily travel abroad. They might travel locally or something like that to get some of that cultural enrichment. And those should be showing up on the application portal called Atlas that I just showed you within the next couple of weeks and everything. These are being developed because of COVID-19. And then there's also on-campus internationalization opportunities that Alana will be talking about in a little bit with this in this presentation. Sorry. Do we have access to the Atlas details you show, options, fees, etc., as you showed from my applicant user account? So I wasn't logged in. That is information that you can access freely and everything. So you don't even have to log in. In fact, I would probably suggest not logging in and just going to Atlas and then looking at the programs, and you should be able to see all the different tabs there and all. Do you think that students should do both study abroad and exchange programs, or should we stick to one? So one of the things that can be confusing is that students will say, well, I want to study abroad over the summer and I want to do an exchange. Well, both are study abroad opportunities, and they can be combined and used as you would like to and everything. So Alana will talk a little bit about our international plan students who are required to spend at least 26 weeks studying or interning abroad. And what's great about that is that you can mix and match programs. So like I said, you could be a mechanical engineering major who is studying Spanish. So maybe you do a Spanish LBAT during your sophomore or your second or your third summer at Georgia Tech. And then you can also do an exchange program at UC3M in Spain and be able to use some of those Spanish skills and also satisfy your mechanical engineering credits and requirements while you're on the exchange program. So yes, you can combine those as you need to and everything. We encourage that. You're not limited to how many times you're able to study abroad. And this is one of the most perfect times in life to be able to do this. The next question is what years are we able to do study abroad? Once you're eligible to study abroad, you can study abroad usually from the summer of your first year all the way through the end of your time at Georgia Tech. And we find that a lot of students kind of do a multitude of things. This is one of those areas where like it's kind of specific to the student. But a lot of students will study abroad the first summer of their academic career at Georgia Tech, so their freshman year summer. And then they'll also study abroad, through their second year all the way through their fourth or fifth year, whichever works best for them. And Alana, once again, will probably touch on this a little bit whenever we get to the international plan, because you would have to study abroad multiple semesters. So it just kind of depends on the student. Are there more popular places to study abroad based off of major, for example, computer engineering? I think that there are some popular places, like a lot of students will do like the Barcelona summer program because it's a College of Computing program for CS majors. But like I said, if you wanted to branch out and do something different and everything, so maybe you wanted to do an exchange program, so then computer engineering at NUS or the National University of Singapore, then you can totally do that. We have a lot of students who like to go to Singapore. So it just kind of depends on the major and stuff. For computer engineering, I'm not entirely sure what are the most popular places, but if we have time at the end of this presentation, we can go and look at your major specifically. The next question is the cost for study abroad additional to normal Georgia Tech tuition, like when you pay that year, it will be more than the previous year because you added study abroad. So typically study abroad is going to be like part and parcel, like you couldn't remove like the cost of tuition from the study abroad program. And so like when students study abroad, they would study abroad for the summer semester. And so when I showed you that budget sheet a second ago, that included the tuition and fees for the summer semester, in addition to the other things that are necessary to study abroad, like flight, room and board and stuff like that. Like that's all kind of like budgeted together. And also I hope that answers your question. The next question is, are all applications for study abroad programs the same in selectiveness, or do they vary? And for many of the faculty-led study abroad programs, they're done on a rolling basis. So if you got your application in for one of the 50 spots that you could get, then that's the selection process. And so there are some programs that do fill up faster, like the Oxford Summer Program. Georgia Tech Lorraine will also fill up quickly. The Barcelona Summer Program also fills up quickly. So some of it is just that. And then our exchanges abroad, so I mentioned Singapore, we have exchange spots where students can go to NUS, and they're only giving us 11 spots. So if we have 15 students who are applying for those 11 spots, then there's going to be, some competitiveness in that. So we're probably going to choose seniors first because they're running out of time to be able to study abroad. We may look at GPA and stuff like that. But if there is a program or an exchange specifically that is more competitive to get into, then our advisors are really intentional about making sure that students know that going into the whole process. So they're not blindsided by the last second that oh, I didn't get in because there was this new requirement at the very end. We try to be very upfront about that because we do know which ones are more selective. Can you participate in multiple exchange programs throughout your degree? Yes, you can. We've had many students do that. So if we are a transfer student, do we have to do 2 semesters before we're able to study abroad? And with transfer students, it's a little bit different because you've already got college experience coming into this, so probably 2 consecutive semesters of full-time degree seeking study. So if you find something that you really want to do, I would recommend reaching out to the advisor for that program and asking them to see what would be necessary for you to be able to study abroad. It's much better to ask than to wait because as a transfer student, you have a much more abbreviated timeline, and that can really impact when you can study abroad. So I would ask as soon as you get here. Does dual enrollment count as 2 semesters of college level degree seeking study? Usually not, because the biggest deciding factor there is whether or not that dual enrollment was 12 credit hours or full-time study. So most students will do dual enrollment for maybe 4 or 6 hours, but not 12. And so it's that 12 credit hours of full-time degree-seeking study that really is the deciding factor there. So that's why we say it's usually the fall semester is your full-time, or is your first full-time degree-seeking study semester, not taking classes as part of your study abroad or as part of your study program. And then I think those are. There's one, is it Georgia Tech tuition plus study abroad tuition equals full tuition for that year? So the Georgia Tech tuition and the study abroad tuition are the same thing. So your study abroad tuition is Georgia Tech tuition. So if you're studying abroad over the summer, the tuition is calculated based on the credit hour. And then if you go on an exchange program, then you're charged for full-time tuition at Georgia Tech. So it's the same thing. Can you apply to multiple programs at the same time? Unfortunately, no, unless you're doing them over different semesters. So if you were applying to study abroad for the fall semester for 2021 and the summer semester for 2021, you could do that, but you couldn't apply for 2 programs for the fall semester alone, simply because if you got accepted to both, then you would be expected to go to both, and you can't do that physically. So that's the biggest difference. So we ask students to choose and everything. And if something were to happen and you had to be moved to a different program, then we work with students as much as possible to get you moved to whatever works best for you. So if you were applying to NUS but you didn't get one of the exchange spots, is there another exchange that you could go on that would allow you to achieve the same goals? So stuff like that. And then how many study abroad programs are we allowed to do? It just totally depends on you and on your schedule. And also we've had some international plan students who have spent 2.5 of their 5 years studying abroad. So, that would be So that would be at least 3 study abroad programs and stuff. So it just really depends on a student and their academic career. And then where can we find out more about major specific study abroad programs? That would be doing the specific Atlas search. So looking at Atlas, sorting it by the academic discipline, and then going through there. That's probably the best way to start. And then if there is like for aerospace engineers, using that example again, if there are programs for like aerospace in India or Limerick, Ireland, or something like that, then you can reach out to the program and ask more specific information about that. But we are starting to kind of run out of time a little bit, so I'm going to move on, and then we'll come back to answer questions in just a little bit. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the Global Research and Internship Program. And what this is it is a program on campus that allows students to intern abroad in industry, research, startup, nonprofit, and governmental settings. Students will typically do a GRIP placement during their 3rd, 4th, or 5th years, mostly because these placements are competitive. And so students who have done things like domestic internships or undergraduate research or study abroad programs are typically more competitive. And those are things that students have done in their first couple of years at Georgia Tech, which makes them more competitive during their 3rd, 4th, or 5th years. That being said, if you're a first-year student who wants to do research and potentially do that research abroad, typically you can do that abroad during your 1st and 2nd years at Georgia Tech. Students are responsible for finding their own internship placements, but we do have staff on campus who are meeting with students on campus and virtually to help students sort out how to find those internships and how to be competitive in that internship process. We are happy to report that majority of our internships are paid, that's 75% of them, and they're paid at the local cost of living, so it's not necessarily a Google salary, but it's enough to be able to live comfortably, to do what you need to do, and stuff like that. And I do want to make sure and note that the Global Research and Internship Program internships are full-time internships, and you can intern during the fall, spring, summer, or for a full academic year, but they are full-time. So you wouldn't necessarily be doing like a couple hours of research and then a couple hours of school. You'd be doing an 8 to 5 internship, so full-time. What's great about these is that it does allow students to participate in high-impact practices like the co-op program, study abroad, and the international plan. So the co-op program allows students to do domestic internship placements while they're at Georgia Tech, and typically a student would study a semester, intern a semester, study a semester, intern a semester for 3 cycles. And so if a student is interning for an international company with domestic placements, then they can do their first 2 domestic internships domestically in the US, and then do their 3rd internship placement abroad. So they could potentially, if you're in a mechanical engineering major, you could intern for Porsche working in Atlanta for 2 semesters and then do your 3rd rotation abroad. They're really great opportunities with this. We also have other ways to go global. So these tend to be like shorter term, and there are things like international service learning, conferences abroad, non-GT study abroad, and all of these still work with our office and everything. So you can register your travel with us and get international insurance, so that if something happens abroad, we're able to locate you and get you taken care of as quickly as possible. And now I'm going to shift over and hand it over to Alana. So Alana, would you like to jump in here?
Yes, thank you, Ashley. I'm really excited to get to speak with everyone about the International Plan, or IP as we call it for short, because it is a unique opportunity that Georgia Tech students have that many students at other universities do not have anything like. And so I hope that you all consider taking advantage. The International Plan is a degree designation program. So what that means is it's a degree-long program, and it's in the realm of a certificate, but it goes for your entire degree that you work on your requirements. It will allow you to earn a designation, almost like a stamp on your diploma and your final transcript that says International Plan, and it basically quantifies what you've accomplished. It shows anyone who's looking at your diploma or your transcript or your resume, because you can put this on your resume as something that you've achieved, It shows anyone that you've done something to formally add an international component to your GT degree. So you would still get your normal degree, whether it's an engineering degree or a sciences degree or an international affairs degree, whatever degree it is that you've decided, or double major, double degree. And then in addition, you've added an international twist to it. We like to refer to it as doing the international version of your GT degree, or maybe even honors study abroad. So there was a question earlier about whether students could go on faculty-led programs and exchange programs, or if they had to pick. And the answer is you definitely don't have to pick one. You can do both. And international plan students often do go on both. So if you're interested in doing 2 semesters abroad, I would encourage you to consider the IP. It could be a really good fit for your goal. The IP will allow you to go beyond just traveling, get true immersion, learn some language, and get to know a new place. Next slide, please, Ashley. Thanks. So, what does the international plan entail? These are the requirements that you would work on throughout your time at GT. It doesn't all have to be done in a given year. You would complete 3 courses from defined categories. One is an international relations category, one is a global economics course, and one is a course that's focused on the country or the region that you choose to study or intern abroad in. So with the IP, again, you've got some flexibility in where you're going. We just want to make sure that you're learning about the world and about the place that you're actually going. And I want to note that this background here, this picture shows a soccer stadium. It was actually a picture taken from one of our students abroad. And I've chosen this one because I wanted to highlight that not all of the courses that are in these defined categories are what you might think of as very traditional classes. So for example, one of the newest classes added to the list, which is quite long, for the international relations category is soccer and global politics. So if you're interested in learning about the world in a less traditional way, that could be an option for you that sounds interesting. The second component of the IP, which is what most students think of when they think of the international plan, is they think about the time abroad. So international plan students spend 26 or more weeks abroad, depending on their choice. You must go abroad for a semester, and then in addition, you can go abroad for either a summer or another semester. The point of going abroad for a full semester plus a summer is that we want to make sure that the IP is your reality. Because usually people think about their summers, students think of their summers as sort of a break from the reality. We want to make sure that you're making international lifestyles part of your reality and getting a real international feel that would help you not only in your academics and getting a really good sense of your major and your field in an international context, but also setting you up to work with people from different backgrounds, maybe working at a multinational company where you might have to do a lot of work with someone from another country, or maybe you even want to work abroad. That's what spending more time abroad is going to set you up for success for. Students in the IP also have to demonstrate proficiency through the 2002 level in a foreign language. So when I say demonstrate proficiency, this means that you have to have the skills. It doesn't mean that you have to take classes if you already have those skills. So if you are bringing in classes from a previous university, it sounds like a few of you are transfer students, those potentially count. If you have AP or IB credits and you've earned a high enough score to place out of 2002 level, those could count. If you don't have those levels, perhaps you want to start a new language. We actually do have students that will come and say, I studied Spanish in high school, but I'm really interested in learning Korean, and that's fine. And we offer those classes, and you take 4 semesters to get through the 2002 level. But the point is there are multiple ways to show your proficiency, and you would just connect them with your places abroad so that you really get that well-rounded sense of where it is you're going. And then the final component is to do a capstone or senior design course. And this is typically part of your major. It's not a separate course. The exceptions are a few majors don't have a capstone or senior design course already built into them. And then we just work with your department to identify a class that you take that would count for your senior design or capstone. And I want to highlight that unlike majors and some minors, classes for the IP can totally double count for other requirements. So you can use these classes to knock out social sciences requirements, humanities requirements, ethics requirements. Maybe you're doing a minor and these overlap, or even a major and they overlap. So we want them to overlap as much as possible. Next slide, please, Ashley. Here's an example of what one student, an actual student who graduated last year, did for her international plan. Sometimes it's helpful to students to visualize what somebody else has done. So Mary was an actual student who studied biology. Her language of choice was Spanish. And I'm going to go counterclockwise here. She chose to do an exchange in Chile. She chose to do a summer internship in Peru in healthcare because that was her area of interest. At the bottom, you can see that her capstone course was just the normal biology capstone course she would have had to take anyway. There was just an IP component that her department added. Next to that is a Spanish 3XXX course, which was her region or country-specific class. And what this did, it was actually a regional class. It allowed her to further her language class and capabilities while doing something specific to her region, so knocking out two birds. And then she also got to take it while she was in Chile. So that was a class that she was able to fulfill while abroad, and it just helped fill out her schedule. And when it came back, it was elective credit, but it still fulfilled the IP's requirements. So it tied in nicely for her. And then she took her global economics class, which you can see is not a traditional economics class. It's actually a development class. And then her international relations class. That's how she chose to do it, but everyone's IP is different, and your IP would be unique to you. Next slide, please, Ashley. In case it's not already evident, I did want to highlight what the IP's value is real quickly. One, you will stand out in interviews. When you turn in a resume that shows this much international experience, whether it's through study or intern abroad, because you can do internships and research abroad as part of the IP, those definitely count. When you have all that experience on your resume, you will stand out from all of the other qualified candidates that are applying for these positions, because as much as GT is an incredible place and you will get an amazing education here, you're also competing against all the other GT students. So do a little bit to set yourself out. You will be able to develop transferable skills, regardless of if an employer wants you to be able to work abroad or not, work in a foreign language or not. They do want you to have skills that you would gain through going on international programs and completing the IP, such as strong communication skills, ability to work with people that are different than you, ability to adapt to unfamiliar situations, and many others that we've seen in research, and also students have self-reported when they got back that they've gained. So that's something to keep in mind. The IP will give you depth, not only depth in a region, but it could also be depth in a major. The whole point of studying a major for any topic is that you gain some expertise. That's what makes you valuable to an employer or to a graduate school or a research institute or a lab. They want to know that you've got something more than just the intro level, more than what somebody could Google or read about. And so when you spend an extended period of time in a foreign country and you learn some of their language and you live the way that the local people do, you gain a level of nuance and expertise that's harder to find, and that makes you a very competitive candidate when you need to be working with different people of other backgrounds, working in that country, or simply being able to think about your field and your material in a different context. And finally, coherence. The IP ties everything together in a nice, perfect package with a nice bow on the top. So if somebody's looking at your resume, they understand that you didn't do things willy-nilly. You did something as part of a cohesive, formal package, part of a formal program at Georgia Tech. This is actually in the catalog. It is not something that we've just thrown together. It is through the overall curriculum committee, and we hope to take advantage of this program. Ashley, could you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So I've talked a lot about how great the IP is. I want to highlight you what some students that have done it in the past have said. So a recent graduate, Eric, said that the international plan provided him a global angle to his experiences. It helped him connect his study and work abroad back to his studies and domestic experiences in Atlanta. And that's exactly what the IP is meant to do. Like I said, it ties everything together. Next slide, please, Ashley. Here are a couple of alumni quotes, a few alumni quotes. I'm going to skim through quickly. We had an AE major, it's aerospace engineering major, comment that he felt like the IP made him a better engineer. A literature, media, and communications major said that on a personal level, she found that she didn't get as overwhelmed when it came to problem solving or adapting to unexpected changes as her peers. And she also is a proud first-generation college student. So we want this to be open and accessible to everyone. A third student said that as a biology major, she found that the language proficiency alone was invaluable, but that also she built some personal and professional connections abroad as a result of participating. And then finally, an economics and international affairs major said that the IP held her accountable to her goal, meaning that she knew that she wanted to do the things the IP required, but the IP gave her the structure and the motivation to make sure she followed through. So these are all different students' reasons for wanting to participate and what they got out of them. Your reasons for wanting to participate or what you're hoping to get out of the IP could be different, and that's okay. This would be your IP. Next slide, please, Ashley. And one final quote to end on. This is Ian, a mechanical engineering major who just graduated last year. He said that the international plan is what defined his college experience. The program allowed him to see the world while going through a rigorous engineering program and helped him become the person he had dreamed of becoming when he started. That's not a ringing endorsement. I don't know what is. Next slide, please. Thanks. And I'm actually going to pause here and just answer some questions before I go on to the next topic. So one at the top I see is, can Georgia Tech students take multiple language courses at Georgia Tech? Yes, you can take multiple language classes, but not necessarily to count for the IP. Another question is, can transfer students do the IP? Yes, you can. It's just a matter of careful planning because you will have less time to complete your degree requirements. And it's a matter of where you want to go, what requirements you've already brought in, and what your priorities are. And I will note here briefly that many majors participate in the IP. There are 27 majors that have opted in. There are a few that have not. So if you find that your major does not participate, you can still talk to me and let me know if you would like to find a workaround. The most notable one is that you pick a second major, but we could talk about that separately. Alice, for example, is a language major, and that was a popular one to double major in if student's major isn't offered through the IP. Question about getting picked for the IP. When to apply. There is actually an IP-specific application. It's best to apply once you've at least been accepted to GT, but there's no specific time. Once you apply, you put all your information in. Applications are reviewed on a rolling basis. We do have deadlines for certain points, but you can still apply at any time during the year. We just can't guarantee that, for example, you'd be invited to the induction ceremony if you didn't apply by the right deadline. And we'll review your application and we will reach out to you. Double check I haven't missed any other IP questions. And to fully answer that, to get picked for the IP, getting picked for the IP has to do with your motivation and showing that you've thought through your plan. We do want students to participate, so we're not looking to weed students out, but we also want to know that students are committed to the program and have a viable plan. I'm here to help work with students, but it's going to be a partnership. And I see another question about the IP, and it looks like Ashley has already dropped the link in that chat, so thank you. Okay, I am going to go ahead and finish the content here, and then we'll come back to questions just to make sure we fit everything in.
Alana,
yes?
One quick question that came up is, what is a typical cost of the international plan? Does it take longer to graduate when in the international plan, or is it still the same? That one was really pertinent, so I wanted to add it in.
Yes, thank you. And actually, I just saw one more at the top that I think I can also adjust. So there is no cost to join the IP. The costs that you might incur while pursuing the IP designation are all related to international travel, so studying and interning abroad, but you would have those regardless of if you were or weren't in the IP. You're definitely eligible to apply to all the same scholarships, and there actually is even one scholarship that is specific to IP students for their second term abroad. And so that's something to keep in mind. I see another question about how long the IP is. The IP is a degree-long program. If you would like to fulfill all of your requirements in your first year and a half, and it works for you, that's great. If you want to spread it out and do it for your entire degree program, that's great too. But either way, you're going to get the designation at the end when you graduate. And then the last question I do want to address is whether you can apply to the IP and a study abroad program simultaneously. And this, I want to clarify because the IP program it's an academic program. So you would have to apply to study abroad and IP at the same time. IP is something that will be ongoing, kind of like a minor. It's something you're working towards. And then the study abroad components are requirements to meet the requirement of the IP. So you can apply simultaneously if you want. You can apply to the IP first, but either way, you're going to have to participate in both in order to meet the IP's requirements. And if this is not clear, because I know it can be a little bit hard to wrap the brain around because it's a weird, I don't want to say it's a weird program, but it's an unusual program, definitely ask me more questions because those are good ones. Okay, so going back to our PowerPoint, on-campus internationalization. We recognize that students sometimes want to have international experiences and globalized experiences without actually leaving campus. And this could be because you're still dipping your toes in the water to see if you want to leave campus, or you're just so excited you're ready to get started right away. And so we through the Office of International Education, run 2 living learning communities. A living learning community is basically a themed residence hall where in some cases you take classes together, in some cases you simply have a theme that everybody is excited about. So the first one is a great fit for first-year students. It's called the Global Leadership Living Learning Community, or GL as we call it for short. It is focused on the UN's 2017 Sustainable Development Goals. So that'll be a common theme. That is a theme of one of the classes that the whole cohort takes. And then the second semester, there's another required class, but it's not a single class. It's a list of selected classes. The students can pick just one from that list of selections, that list of options. And those classes can double count with other requirements, such as core requirements or your minor requirement or IP, etc. The cost to live in the LC would be normal housing fees plus $400 per semester, and those $400 go right back into programming and events and field trips for you, because there are a lot of activities in field trips living, especially in GL. I've seen them go to the botanical gardens, to on tours around downtown, a Beltline tour. They go on trips, they've got ice skating, so they do a lot, and so the money really does go right back to you. The second option is a great option for students that are upperclassmen, transfer students, basically anyone after your first year. And this is called International House, or iHouse for short. It's about 50% GT degree-seeking students and 50% incoming exchange students. So those students that we meant, or those exchanges that we mentioned earlier this presentation, where students go from GT to another university, also works the other way. So the other university sends their students here, and their students want to get to know Atlanta and want to get to know GT. And so they have the option to live in the iHouse too. And you really have a very international environment. It could be, I've had people describe it as studying abroad in Atlanta because you're surrounded by people that really want to get to know the area. And it could also be a great way to get to know people from a university that maybe you're thinking of studying at, or a country where you're thinking of studying. For iHouse, there is no required class, just required participation in different activities. And you would pay normal housing fees plus $200 per semester, which again will go right back into your program. You pause for any questions on living learning communities. I will answer these additional questions in 1 second. Just want to make sure we have time to get through the content. Ashley, I'm going to turn it over to you to round this out.
I was all ready to get started, and then I realized that I had not turned my audio back on. So thank you all so much for being engaged in the questions. We will try to answer as many as possible as we go through the rest of this program. We don't have too much left. So we have regular fall events that happen on a regular basis. Unfortunately, many of these have already passed, but we wanted to show you this so that you have an idea that we have plenty to get involved in once you're on campus. And we have similar events for the spring semester as well. One of the things that is upcoming is the International Education Week, which is a week-long celebration of all things international. So that's going to include things like we're hopefully going to have like tongue twisters with the president, where we have him say different tongue twisters in different languages and help him decipher what those mean. Or it could be, an international night market with our cultural organizations on campus, having food and different like games and activities, or lectures from different faculty and staff on maybe the sustainable development goals or something like that. So it's a really great, robust week of programming that we hope that you'll take advantage of once you're on campus. We are already in the thick of questions, so I'm going to bypass this slide and go ahead and put up our contact information so that you can find some more information. So there were a couple of questions that asked where students could find more information, and if it's about a program or costs or something like that, then that first link at the top of the page, the atlas.gatech.edu, is a really great link to find what you're looking for. There were also many questions on how to apply for the international plan, and that second link is the link to access to figure out how to apply for the international plan, or you can always email Alana or I, and we'll find a way to put that in a chat question. So when we're on campus, we are in the Savant building, which is right over by Tech Tower. It's a great scenic place of campus, so we'll hope that you'll visit us there. And I'm going to ask Alana to unmute and answer questions as she sees them, and then I will also pick questions and try to answer them as well, so that we can wrap up by 5 p.m. so that you can get to your next session. So thank you all so much for your time and attention. We really, really appreciate it. We are here to help you figure out what you would like to do. So if you have questions, please continue to put them into the Q&A, and let's answer some more questions.
Sure. So one question I do want to address is how good at a language that is required to participate in the IP. And the language requirement is all the same. The minimum requirement is 2002 level, which is 4 semesters of a foreign language. And as I mentioned before, there's no requirement that you have any knowledge now. It's just that by the time you graduate, you have done up to the 2002 or through the 2002 level.
The next question we have is, if you're living on campus and have paid the dorm fee, how does it work if you get accepted into a spring semester study abroad program? Will the second semester dorm fee be able to be refunded? It's a great question and very practical. If you were to do a spring study abroad program, we have a housing release form that will help you to break that contract. You do have to be absolutely certain that you're going to do that. This is not something that we do lightly and everything, but absolutely you can get out of your contract if you need to with a housing form.
I see another question that I have typed a response to, but I do want to highlight whether the Oxford Study Abroad program would fulfill the IP program requirements. And the short answer is maybe. The Oxford program in particular sometimes is a little bit trickier just because it has to fit into a larger plan, but it is possible depending on how students plan to link it, their language, etc. It might be easier to link, for example, if you were planning to spend more time in the UK, and that's a special circumstance. You still have to have foreign language, but it's more coherent because you're spending a longer time in one country as opposed to simply pairing the Oxford program with another. The short answer, maybe. If you have something really specific, I'm happy to talk through your individual ideas with you. Scrolling through now, I don't see other ones that haven't been answered, but it looks like perhaps there are a couple of new ones at the top that just came through to me.
One great question is, do the LBAT programs fulfill the IP requirements? Do you want to take that one?
Sure. Yes. The LBAT programs very often do fulfill the IP requirements, one of the IP international experience requirements, because they are inherently language-based. It is a very popular combination for students to do a language LBAT and then go spend a semester on exchange or do an internship in a country that speaks that same language.
The next question I see is, do we have to wait until after our first 2 semesters before we can apply for the IP?
No, you do not have to wait. You are encouraged to apply right away because the IP is not only international experience, it's coursework and language and other components, well, other informal components. Those are the main required components. We want you to have the knowledge that you're pursuing the degree designation early so that you have time to finish and plan it out.
The next question I see is, does the IP program require extra essays and stuff to get the stamp?
Well, it depends what you mean by extra essays. There will be some extra components to your academic degree plan. For example, in your capstone, sometimes you take the same class as all the other people in your major, but the IP students in the capstone would do an extra paper, for example. So that could be something that is extra. If you decide that you want to build your own international plan and you have to defend the connection that you've built between two countries or two programs that are not immediately obviously linked, you might need to write a short statement, 1 to 2 pages, explaining why you think that those two are linked and meet IP's goals. But in general, there is not a lot of essay writing. That helps.
All right. Go ahead.
So I see a question that is, what is LDAT? LDAT is a type of faculty-led program that stands for Language of Business and Technology. It is a language-intensive program run by Georgia Tech faculty.
And they are fantastic. What's great is sometimes you can mix and combine them, where you could do like a Spanish LBAT in Barcelona and Mexico, or Peru and Ecuador and stuff like that. So there are quite a few options with some of the LBAT programs. But it looks like we are officially at 5:01, so I'm going to turn us off. But thank you so much for being so engaged. It has been a great conversation with you all. If you have questions, please follow up with us. I'm going to ask that admissions send you some specific links in a follow-up email, and that will have our email addresses in there as well. So thank you so much, and we hope that you have a wonderful day.